service. It's not Uber. I'm going to talk about Uber later. But there's a car sharing service, for instance, where you can, a company which owns cars and rents cars per hour. You can just go anywhere, pick up that car, drive wherever you want, and then leave it. It's not a classic rent-a-car, because you can just use your app for that. You can just go anywhere, use your app, and do that. So you have access to a car you need at the current moment, but you do not have the ownership that comes with it, at least not directly. Redistribution markets. So there are a couple of points here. First, the redistribution markets are one aspect that we can think about. And if you think about the redistribution aspect, you can think about eBay, or I don't know if you have Limundo or Cupindo, or one of the similar Balkan varieties of eBay. But this basically means that you can share or sell your used goods to be reused and redistributed. We have product service systems where you have to pay to access the benefit of a product without needing it outright. There's a fantastic company called TaskRabbit, where people can offer the services they want, the services they can offer. So for instance, if you're good with woodwork, you can offer that service, or if you're good with cleaning, or whatever you want. And people can just grab that portion of your time in returns for, of course, the benefits you want, and provide that particular service. We also have the collaborative lifestyles, non-product aspect, such as people working together on the same issues or working together on a similar cause without ever knowing each other, and trade with these ideas. You can see that if anyone here works, for instance, in design or IT or coding of any sort. This is where I have encountered, at least not personally because I don't code anything, but where I have encountered very good and very beneficial ways of collaborative lifestyle. And we have, of course, business to consumer type. And if you think about business to consumer type, this is Uber and Netflix, for instance. So this is something where a business, a company, is providing something to the particular consumer. We have peer-to-peer, which is, for instance, UberX or Lyft. This means that another person is providing value for you, and a person is offering you this service as well. The difference between Uber and UberX is that Uber, as initially started, owns vehicles, while UberX, of course, as well part of Uber, allows you, and that is the most prominent way of using it, as well as probably you heard, is that anyone has the opportunity who has a driving license to drive a car, to drive a person, and anyone can pick up a ride, and anyone can ask for it. Lyft works in a similar way as well. And we have business-to-business models as well. Businesses who offer other businesses different models. We can talk about educational platforms here, for instance. What is important about the collaborative consumption? It is reinventing. It is completely changing the way we consume. It is completely changing the way we think about some of our activities. For instance, many of my friends and colleagues who fly to conferences or go to conferences regularly, pretty much this is what they do in the first hour and a half when they come somewhere, or wherever they go. Is you land to the airport, you take an Uber, and then you go to your Airbnb. And this is what you will see many more people doing in the future. And I will talk a little bit about the trends as well. But finally, the point of this collaborative consumption is that it's completely reinventing and changing the way we use and the way we consume certain things. Let's talk a bit about collaborative economy, very similar term. It's built on distributed networks of connected individuals. So here you have networks and communities versus the centralized institutions. What you do is that you bypass the middleman. There's no one person that's in the middle from you and doing the transaction. That allows immediate contact with the person who offers a service and the person who requires this service. Decreases the transaction costs, escapes the middleman. It has many other benefits. Production, for instance. Design, production, distribution of goods through collaborative networks. So if we talk about consumption, it allows maximum utilization of assets. What this really means is that if you have an asset you're not using at the moment, you could say that it's not adding any value at that particular moment. or it is losing value just because it's left unused. In this case, if you try to maximally utilize your resources, you get to the point where you get more efficiency and more efficient models of people getting the access to the needs, to the assets they want, and those assets being redistributed more easily. It also, an important part of that is with education, and education is a very good example of a collaborative economy. And I think this is one of the greatest points of being alive in the 21st century, and that is that it has never, ever been as easy to learn about everything you want, anytime you want, from anywhere in the world. I think this is a fantastic opportunity. This is an amazing thing. Just imagine that. You have the access to the best courses. For instance, some of these companies are Coursera or Udemy that you might have heard of. Through these companies, you immediately have access to any or hundreds and hundreds of lectures from professors from Yale, Princeton, any university you can imagine on topics that you can dream of, and you can watch it in a few clicks. I think we are too early in this phase, and this is, of course, only developing for, let's say, a decade now. But the effects of such widespread, decentralized, and easy to access education are going to be incredible in the coming years. And one of the other examples of collaborative economy that you might have heard of is the Kickstarter. So basically, a Kickstarter is a platform where if you have a certain project that you would like to pitch, if you have something that you think it would be a very, very good product, but you just can't find the resources to support it now, you can find other people who would be interested in assisting you with that or financially supporting it. And again, Kickstarter, I'm not going to start naming it and praising them, but they get started and conducted some amazing projects and had an incredible value. But finally, for some reason you cannot see this, but collaborative economy is finally reinventing the way we produce things. It is reinventing the way we are coming up with stuff, coming up with projects via Kickstarter, or coming up with different financial models which are decentralized. And we try to produce them differently. You see different methods and as well as with the production. If you're working on something with collaborative networks, you are working in a different ways, and it's reinventing the way we are producing, as well as we saw the way we consume. For instance, on-demand services. This is very clear. I don't think there's a need to talk a lot more about this. Here's, of course, the classical Uber application where you just see the profile. It has everything you need. It has the car that will wait for you, your location, and everything else. So Uber is probably the best, the most widely circulated example of on-demand services. We can also, for instance, an interesting startup, and actually a company that is doing really well for the last year or two, has been the Desk Beers. This is a small company, a small startup that started in London. What their idea was, we're going to start this company, and since UK is a very, very beer-drinking country, what we're going to offer to offices and to all the companies that are in the near area is that they will fill a form, how much beer do they need for their employees after work, or on Fridays, or for parties, and we will just supply that to them. We're going to bring their beer to their desk after every day. And they're doing amazingly well, or not very amazingly considering where. But platforms that directly match customers' needs with those who provide it. So what they do is that they take each of you and each of your interests or each of your needs, and they want to connect you to the person who can provide it. This is where the information part is extremely important. This was not possible only 10 or 15 years ago when you didn't have the technology to do so. Now, it is much, much more easily available. So what it is doing, it is basically matching the supply and demand in a way that's more efficient. Of course, this is not universally applicable, but in a lot of these areas that we will see a bit later, it's universally, matching the needs of each of these people with the supply for that. Here are some of the services that I thought would be good to be listed, but this is just to show you a little bit about what these services can actually be. So we have professional services which will help you in your work. You have CrowdSpring, Desk, Freelancer, all these other collaborative professional services which will help you with your work. But then you have the personal services like TaskRabbit, Angels, Pop Expert, which in one or the other way help you around the house, help you around your personal life, whatever you need. There, for instance, there is this startup, or actually a very big company, there's more than 20 of them across the States now, which are trying to help you with walking your dogs. You have an app, it shows you where the nearest dog walker is, you click on it and he comes and picks up your dog. It's an amazing thing, and it's making a lot of people, it adds a lot of value to a lot of people. It adds, as Tom said, it adds value to the person who is purchasing this particular service, but also to the one providing it. We have transportation services, and they have been probably the most recognizable part of this industry so far. Mainly, it's because of everything that has happened, and I will show some of the pictures later. But I think Uber and Lyft have really started a new revolution in the way we think about transportation. And this is only something that will be visible in the year to come. We have different options of office space for sharing, for instance. Share desk, you can share your working space with someone, or you can just find wherever you are, desks near me, you can go to any city. And if you need an office space, if you need somewhere to check up on your email or Skype or do your meetings or wherever you want to do, you have a place and you can just access this place. So the amount of options here, and of course the places to stay, such as Airbnb, which has been completely changing in a lot of ways the way we think about traveling and accommodation in that regard. So what are the building blocks of the sharing economy? First, the people. Without the people who are engaging in this sort of activity and who are willing to engage in this sort of activity, we wouldn't have the economy, the sharing economy. But there are production and distribution as well. Of course, value and systems of exchange. If we didn't add value to each of the persons involved in this transactions would not happen. So just a little bit about, again, matching the supply and demand. This is an interesting graph that shares the life cycle of the sharing economy. We can see that, for instance, some of the niches are here, such as peer-to-peer lending and crowdfunding. Also, for instance, online staffing, helping having someone fulfill your professional team. Then we have some of the breakthroughs that are currently the most popular ones and the most trending ones. We have peer-to-peer accommodation here. I've mentioned Airbnb, Couchsurfing, and like. Then we have car sharing, such as Uber, Lyft, and similar. We have music and video streaming, which are already getting into the normalized space. So these are some of the, now we're getting to some of those who are already set and already working on this principle. You can talk about music and video streaming and the way that is shared. Or equipment rental. Equipment rental is getting much, much bigger than ever before. The reason for that is that many people have tools or just big machines or appliances they're not using all the time, right? You don't use your tractor every day. So what you can do with it is that you can rent it to someone. You can add some extra cash to yourself. Someone gets the tractor he or she needs. It's a mutually beneficial interaction, and of course the tractor doesn't go to waste by sitting in some park somewhere. Also, some of those that are a bit older or mature are book rentals and car rentals that we have been all kind of very aware about. And we have some that are just declining or dying, such as renting DVDs from anywhere. So how is it exactly shaping the world? First, it's a 15 billion per year generated economy. 15 billions per year is generated by this sharing economy. They actually estimate that 335 billion is going to be the whole value of this industry by 2025. And what is more important, and what is the reason I'm really interested in, I really like this topic, is that it is shifting the power from the institutions to the people. It is shifting the power from the taxi cartels to each and every one of you who wants and can drive. It is grabbing and just giving back this power to the people in many, many different occasions and ways. We become creators, we become producers, we become financiers, we become artists, we become all these different things from passive consumers. Because we're finally allowed and we have a way to access this. It's of course matching the needs and wants, and that is extremely, extremely important. It is a new way to think about how we utilize our assets. It will, I mentioned this before, it will completely change the way we can think about some of the assets we own and make it more efficient and more affordable for each of us to own or use these assets in the right way. It is creating communities. And I think this is an aspect that cannot be neglected whatsoever. There are very, very big communities created around some of these groups, around people who are sharing. For couchsurfing is a great example of that. It has a very fast-paced community that is meeting a lot in every different place in the city. If you go to any larger city, you can always go and meet someone. So it has a very, very big community aspect as well. It is creating new services. It is rethinking the old ones. Some of the services that are coming up have not existed before, right? There are some of these things that you would never ever think or do before. But there are some of the old ones that we have the chance to rethink. We have the chance to rethink the way we are gonna rent our apartment. We have the opportunity to rethink the way we're gonna travel. We have the opportunity to rethink what are we gonna buy with this money and what is that we can actually get for this value if we would use this particular technology. It's creating new jobs. And these new jobs, this is something that will be argued by some, but these new jobs have been constantly and are constantly created. If you're a student, you might not have time in very big parts of the world. You wouldn't have a chance or have enough time to work, right? At least not a full-time job. Sometimes not even a part-time job. It's so much easier. It would be so much easier if you could add some extra earnings and just by driving your car and picking up someone and driving them to their school, or whatever you want to do in your free time with the assets you have. So it creates new jobs, and it creates the type of atmosphere where everyone can be a capitalist in a way. Everyone can be an entrepreneur in this system. It provides flexible workplace, reinvents the way we work. Think about that. It completely changes. You can work in some aspects, and if you do work in certain parts of this industry, you can work from your beach or your coffee shop or the roof of your friend's place or wherever in the world you want to be. You don't have to be locked down to the 9 to 5 chair at a certain place. So it allows you to first fulfill your personal needs and be, I would assume, a happier living being as well. It can be just as or even more lucrative than traditional economies. I have had numerous encounters, for instance, with Uber drivers who had full-time jobs, some of them working on very serious positions, for instance, working as doctors, who picked up a few rides on the way home or had a free Saturday and wanted to make some extra money for their son's pocket money. You have all these different ways. And some of them can even, of course, if you're really good at it and really dedicated, you can make, or it can be more lucrative than some of the traditional economies. It allows lower prices in a lot of ways. Let's take two examples. First would be Uber. Everywhere you look, I think New York is probably the only place where Uber is actually more expensive than taking a taxi. Everywhere else, it goes sometimes from 15, 20, even 30 or 35% less to get to a point A to point B. Or take for an example an Airbnb. I cannot stop pitching Airbnb to people because for me it just does wonders. The reason for that is that you get your own place, you get probably something that you would pay hundreds or even thousands of dollars if you would want to get a suite in a hotel, and you get that for much less. And when I talk about much less, I'm definitely suggesting wherever you go next, please check and see if you can find better options. I'm sure you will. You get better service. All of these systems, or the majority of them, works on peer review. What that means is that whoever was the service provided to has the opportunity to leave a public review of your service. I can write on your profile and say if your bathroom was clean enough, or if you had a dead animal in your car, whatever was going on there. So that incentivizes each of these participants, each of these service providers to work better. I don't know if you entered a cab in Bosnia, Serbia, Croatia, or anywhere close, and for instance that you had bottles of water and some candy waiting for you in case you're thirsty or want something sweet. None of the taxi drivers have an incentive to do that. They don't really care. For them, it's about just whoever gets picked up, and no one's going to call them personally. In a system where you can actually review and rate something like this, you have an extremely improved incentive and much bigger incentive to provide better service. It allows flexibility to workers, and not just in terms of the workplace and the way we work, but in other ways as well. Would it be just geographically? Would it be time-wise? It can be many different things. But it allows this particular thing happen. It's encouraging innovations. You can see that many of these, and you have not heard of, and none of us have, of dozens and thousands that have probably failed. But some of them made it through. And what this system does, it is encouraging innovations. It is encouraging people to try and to find some other niche that they could fill with their use, with their knowledge, the motives they have, and everything else that can add value and benefit every single or every person who uses the services or is in society. It's bringing together social movements which are centered on this idea of sharing. This is happening more and more, and it's going to be happening more. It's promoting openness and humaneness. I cannot. This is not a point that's very easily explicable, but I think that any one of you who had a chance to participate in some of these activities, or to work with some of these companies, may have encountered that you would need a certain sense of openness first to enter into someone else's apartment of a person you don't know in a city you don't know. But it also takes humaneness. You have to be open and lovable of the other person in order to be happy to have them in your own apartment or in your car, wherever you are, or be with them or travel and stay in their own place. Also, some argue that it's a greener alternative. I have not done much research on this. I cannot tell you much about the environmental aspects of it, but I do believe the authors on this as well. So finally, it is changing, and this is what I've been mentioning before. It is changing the concepts of ownership. We get less concentrated on ownership of having this particular thing and more on experiences. We focus more on what we will experience and what the experience will be, what is the value of that, compared to owning this particular certain product. It is turning consumption goods in capital goods. I think this is a point that Steve Horowitz very recently made on his blog, Professor Steve Horowitz. And he's saying that basically what it does is that Marx should be kind of happy with this. Marx should be kind of satisfied, because in a way, people finally get to own their means of production. They finally own and they become capitalists in a way. So the sharing economy creates that. It creates from each of the persons who own something that was just a couple of years ago a consumption good, such as their unused apartment or any apartment, or their car, or whatever we were talking about, a tractor or something. It is starting to turn that consumption good, which was previously just for your own use. You could lend it, but that doesn't really happen. It is turning it something that you can use as a capital good. You can use it. You can use many more of these things now than before for something that will add value. Like the scope of this is incredible. I'll be mentioning cars and apartments because this is something that's very visible, and probably some of you have experiences with that. But there are many, many different models of this. There is dress sharing, for instance, for people who live in the same city and want to share really high-end clothes and don't want to purchase it. There are all these different models, and anything you can think of, it either has been created or you should start creating it if you think it would add value. So yes, Marx should have liked this, I think. And I don't think he would appreciate this last line though. So this is just to give you an idea of the number of startups which are in the sharing economy at the moment. We have San Francisco is the main hub, obviously the Silicon Valley with almost 150 sharing economy startups last year. We have New York City, London, Paris, Boston, Los Angeles, and so on. You can see that most of this is based currently, most of the activities are based either in North America or in big centers in Europe. We have Australia here, and we have, of course, India rising up with Mumbai and Bangalore being on the list. And we come to the government intervention. And if it wasn't for this, it would be a different kind of a thought. So what is the reason for the government intervention, and what is that the government intervention here accomplishes? First, and I think this is the most obvious one, is protecting the value of existing capital and existing cartels.